Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're embarking on a journey through some, well, truly mind-bending historical territories.
We really are.
We'll be sifting through the accounts and theories in Robert Sepehr's 1666 Redemption Through Sin, and also Species with Amnesia.
Yeah, prepare to see connections you might never have imagined. Things linking up across, vast stretches of time.
Our goal today is really to pull out the most fascinating, the most thought-provoking bits from these sources for you.
Exactly. We're looking at historical analyses, interpretations of religious movements, ancient civilizations, the whole gamut.
All to uncover some surprising facts, maybe some hidden links within these narratives.
Think of it as getting the core insights, the juicy stuff, without having to wade through absolutely everything yourself.
Okay, let's dive right in then. We're going to start, I think, in the 17th century with a figure who really kicked up a storm, Sabbatai Zevi.
Sabbatai Zevi, a very charismatic rabbi, a Kabbalist.
Yeah.
And he made this incredibly bold declaration in 1666.
Which was?
He announced himself as the Messiah.
Wow.
And this wasn't some, fringe event. He gathered a massive following. The estimates are over 1 million people.
1 million?
Yeah, which at the time was roughly half the Jewish population globally.
Half the world's Jewish population. That's staggering.
It really underscores the intensity of messianic hope in that era. It was palpable.
And it seems the growth of his movement was tied up with Lurianic Kabbalah becoming more available.
Precisely. The printing press was key here.
Ah.
It allowed these new interpretations of Jewish mysticism, stemming from Rabbi Isaac Luria, to spread much more widely.
And this was after a period of persecution.
Yes, exactly. So Lurianic Kabbalah offered a more, let's say, optimistic, maybe more inward-looking spiritual path. It resonated deeply.
It's focused more on hidden meanings, a personal connection.
Right, a more personal connection to the divine, understanding the hidden layers.
Okay, now here's where things, they took a really sharp turn, right? Sabbatai's teachings. They weren't exactly traditional.
Not at all. We're talking about pretty radical departures, setting aside established rituals, for instance.
Like turning fast days into feasts.
Exactly, an inversion. And then there were, according to the sources, encouragements towards some very unconventional sexual practices.
Okay, what kind of practices are we talking about?
Well, the sources describe things like sexual promiscuity, adultery, even claims of incest and religious orgies among some followers.
Right. That would obviously generate huge controversy.
Absolutely. It was considered heretical by many in the wider Jewish community at the time. Understandably so.
And then comes the bit that seems almost impossible to explain. Sabbatai Zevi converts to Islam.
Yeah.
Surely for most people that's the end of the story. No more Messiah.
You'd absolutely think so. But the Neo-Sabbatean perspective, which is what these sources delve into, offers a completely different take.
How so?
They didn't see it as a betrayal. They framed it as a mystical, strange action.
Masim Zarim.
Exactly, Masim Zarim. The idea, rooted in Kabbalah, was that this was somehow a necessary, albeit confusing, step for the true Messiah.
So the surface appearance hid a deeper spiritual purpose.
That was the belief, something most people just couldn't grasp. It's a recurring theme, this idea of strange actions.
And it seems to connect to his involvement with the Bektashi Sufis, too.
Yes, his participation in their rites fits this pattern.
What were the Bektashis like? Were they mainstream?
Not really. They were quite distinct from mainstream Sunni Islam. Many saw them as antinomian.
Meaning they thought religious laws were kind of optional for the unenlightened?
Something like that. Their practices were different private prayer, less strict fasting. They permitted alcohol consumption and had more gender equality in worship.
So Sabbatai getting involved with them, it fits the strange actions profile.
It certainly aligns with that pattern of unconventional behavior, defying traditional norms.
Okay, help us understand the why behind these strange actions. You mentioned it links to Lurianic Kabbalah, specifically the holy sparks.
Precisely. The Lurianic creation story is key here. It talks about the divine light shattering its vessels during creation.
Right, Shivirat HaKelim.
Yes, the shattering of the vessels. And this resulted in fragments, these holy sparks, or nitzotzad, getting trapped within the material world within the kelapot.
The kelapot being?
Like shells, husks, layers of negativity or impurity that trap the divine sparks.
So the main task is to free these sparks.
Yes, that's tikkun olam, the repairing of the world, liberating the sparks to restore cosmic harmony.
And the really wild idea presented in these sources is that some Kabbalists thought engaging with sin could actually help free the sparks.
It's deeply paradoxical, isn't it?
Yeah.
But the reasoning was that the Messiah had to descend into the realm of impurity, into the Kelipot, confront it directly, to redeem those sparks trapped in the deepest levels.
By experiencing sin, they expose its illusory nature somehow.
That seems to be the idea. A deliberate descent into darkness to ultimately overcome it, break the power of evil from within.
This led to some really extreme ideas about secrecy too, right? Like concealing your true faith, even tending to convert, like the Marranos during the Inquisition.
Exactly. The radical Sabbateans took this to an extreme. They argued true faith had to be hidden, nurtured internally.
So the Messiah himself would appear outwardly conforming.
Yes, donning the garments of a Marrano, as the saying went. And from this, some argued that every Jew was obligated to do the same, outwardly conform, secretly maintain their faith.
Wow. And you see parallels between these Sabbatean practices, ignoring dietary laws, the group sex rituals, ecstatic singing, and groups like the Bektashis.
There are definite overlaps mentioned in the sources, also with the Salonika Danma, a group that continued Sabbatean traditions.
Their Festival of the Lamb sounds particularly intense.
Sources describe it involving intoxication, communal sexual rites in darkness, spouse swapping. Pretty unorthodox stuff.
How did they even justify breaking Torah law?
They apparently used a Talmudic dictum, but totally out of context, claiming transgression committed for its own sake is greater than a commandment not committed for its own sake.
Twisting the meaning, basically.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
Applying it in a way far removed from its original rabbinic discussion about repentance and intention.
Okay, then comes Jacob Frank, Sabbatai Zevi's successor,
Okay.
right? And he pushed things even further.
Oh, much further. Frank, in the 18th century, truly radicalized the redemption through sin philosophy. We're talking about religious sex orgies becoming central.
He even had different ideas about God.
Yes. He embraced a kind of Gnostic view, suggesting the biblical God was different, maybe even evil. He rejected all moral laws, all commandments.
Advocating for
What?
the complete destruction of existing civilization. And according to the sources, he suggested that really taboo acts, child sacrifice, rape, incest, drinking blood, were acceptable, even necessary religious rituals.
That's profoundly disturbing. A huge leap even from Sabbatai.
A very significant and dark departure, yes. And his daughter, Eve Frank, she was involved, took over after him.
She played a central role in the sex rituals, apparently, and did lead the group after Jacob's death. It's a very strange, unsettling picture.
What was the Frankist logic for all this, the descent into darkness?
They developed this idea of needing to reach the bottom of the abyss before you could ascend, a kind of twisted take on Jacob's ladder.
And their view on Jewish exile changed too.
Right. It wasn't seen as punishment anymore, but as a strategic mission.
A mission. To do what?
To spread out and infiltrate, basically. To undermine and destroy the Kelipot, the forces of evil, everywhere in the world. A very unique and frankly controversial form of Jewish territorialism.
Okay, wow. So now we're shifting gears quite a bit. We're moving into alleged connections between these Sabbatean Frankist ideas and secret societies. Freemasons, Illuminati. This is where conspiracy theories really kick in.
It definitely enters that territory. The sources we're looking at propose that these Sabbatean and Frankist ideologies influenced the inner core of Freemasonry, especially the Illuminati, founded in 1776.
And the claim is that Freemasonry then became this hidden hand.
Yeah, a clandestine force supposedly orchestrating major events, revolutions, the creation of the UN, Israel, world wars.
Even the Holocaust and the Kennedy assassinations are mentioned in this context.
They are mentioned in the sources as part of this alleged hidden influence. These are obviously very big and highly debated claims.
And the symbol of the all-seeing eye, like on the US dollar bill, gets pulled in as evidence.
It's often cited in these theories as representing the supposed hidden influence, this cult of the all-seeing eye.
The theory also suggests these Sabbatean and Frankists are like chameleons, operating everywhere.
Right. Adaptable figures within different power structures, sometimes appearing as good guys, sometimes bad guys, but all secretly working towards one agenda.
Then there's Skull and Bones at Yale, the secret society with the skull and crossbones, the number 322. What's the connection supposed to be?
Well, the sources speculate about the symbolism. Skull and crossbones may be linked to Osiris or ancient sun symbols. The number 322, possibly to a Greek fraternal group.
And Dr. Metcalfe's ideas come in here too, about elite bankers.
Yes, Dr. Metcalfe's contention, as presented in the source, is that elite bankers, allegedly influenced by these societies, control major corporations, media, intelligence agencies, universities.
To suppress truth and push an agenda.
An agenda aimed at, in his view, undermining Western society through things like feminism, minority favoritism, mass immigration, interracial marriage. Again, it's crucial to state these are claims from the source material.
And the Rothschilds are central to this theory, allegedly controlling media.
The claim presented is that they bought up news agencies, Reuters, Wolf, Havas, to control information flow.
And Jacob Schiff founding the ADL, the source claims that was to silence critics.
Yes, the source suggests the ADL was established by Schiff, not primarily to fight anti-Semitism, but to label and suppress criticism of what's portrayed as a Rothschild conspiracy.
Okay, this leads to a really sensitive area. Claims about Zionist involvement in World War I and the Balfour Declaration.
Extremely sensitive. The source makes the controversial claim that Zionist groups pushed for WWI involvement to secure Palestine. It also alleges that Jewish-controlled U.S. media was initially pro-German,
supposedly causing resentment in Germany that fueled later hostility.
That's the assertion in the source. And we have to stress, this is purely reporting the content of the source, not endorsing this highly contentious viewpoint.
Absolutely. Neutrality is key here. The source also offers a different take on Hitler's rise.
It does. It attributes it less to ideology initially and more to the economic devastation in Germany after WWI. Allegedly caused by private international banks, with supposed Rothschild and Rockefeller ties.
And Hitler's economic policies are highlighted, issuing state currency, public works.
Yes, the source points to his issuing debt-free Reichsmarks, taking on the banking cartels, funding public works, things it credits with Germany's rapid economic recovery.
And claims this side of the story is suppressed.
The source alleges that Rothschild-controlled mainstream media suppresses this, focusing only on portraying Hitler as purely evil.
There's also a claim about the first use of the word Holocaust regarding WWII.
Yes, the source claims the first public mention came from a labor Zionist leader back in 1936.
And Christopher John Dierknes's theory is mentioned, that the Rothschilds needed persecution.
His theory, as presented, is that large-scale persecution was seen as necessary to force European Jews to Palestine, furthering an alleged world government plan.
Then Barry Chamish's claims. Low Zionist support among German Jews, turning back refugees.
Right. Claims about low Zionist support in 1933, non-Zionist refugees being turned away, a supposed transfer agreement between Nazis and labor Zionists to select and transfer Jews to Palestine.
And even the claim that the Zionist flag was one of only 2 allowed in Nazi Germany.
That claim is also included in the source material.
Finally, Rabbi Moshe Schoenfeld's accusations, alleging Rothschild Zionist collaboration in the Holocaust.
Yes, those very strong accusations are also part of the narrative presented in the source.
So putting it all together, the overarching theory is this hidden network, influenced by Sabbatean Frankist ideas, secretly running the world through infiltration and control.
It's a vast, intricate, and highly controversial tapestry of claims, suggesting this hidden influence stretching back centuries.
Okay, let's pivot now, quite dramatically, to species with amnesia and ancient civilizations. This feels like a completely different direction.
It is, but perhaps connected in unexpected ways. Species with amnesia fundamentally argues for highly advanced civilizations existing before ours.
Civilizations destroyed by global catastrophes.
Exactly. With only fragments of their knowledge surviving, passed down in myths, symbols, ancient structures. The idea is we're suffering from a kind of collective amnesia about our deep past.
And the Piltdown Man hoax is used as an example.
As an early example of how expert opinion on human origins could be, well, manipulated or just plain wrong, a cautionary tale about accepted narratives.
The reevaluation of Lucy fits here too, the hominin fossil.
Yes. The source discusses evidence suggesting Lucy might have been more tree-dwelling, more ape-like, than often portrayed as a direct human ancestor.
And Dr. Lovejoy's controversial idea
That apes might have evolved from ancestors who looked more like us, it completely flips the usual evolutionary picture.
Species with amnesia also floats the idea that humanity isn't one single race, but maybe a hybrid species?
It does challenge that idea. It looks at the standard out-of-Africa theory, but also presents counter-evidence.
Like the Hofmeyr skull.
Right. Found in South Africa, but with features closer to European Neanderthals. And some Y chromosome studies suggesting non-Africans might lack certain deep African genetic markers.
But it also acknowledges ancient mixing within Africa.
Oh, yes. Evidence of admixture in African genomes from archaic, now extinct hominins.
Yes.
It suggests a much more complex web of migrations and interbreeding, not just a straight line out of Africa.
The book uses animal hybrids as an analogy, like ligers or wolfins.
Exactly. Blood parrots, yakos, savanna cats, wolfins, killer bees, examples to show hybridization happens, and maybe it's been underestimated in the human story, too.
Then there's Cro-Magnon man, appearing suddenly in Europe and North Africa.
Around 35,000 BC, yeah. Tall, rugged, large brains. But appeared quite suddenly in the record, without clear local predecessors. The source notes a disharmonism in their skull features compared to later people.
And the book speculates maybe they were Atlanteans.
It raises that possibility, noting they appear in Western Europe and across the Atlantic, but with no clear sub-Saharan African origin point suggested in the source.
This ties into Plato's Atlantis story.
Yes, Plato's account of a large, advanced seafaring civilization beyond the pillars of Heracles' Gibraltar destroyed by cataclysms.
And the 10 god kings mentioned.
The Aratians or Alatians. The source connects them to Egyptian and Greek myths, suggesting perhaps a historical core to these legends.
What about Native Americans? The source connects them to European populations.
It acknowledges the Asian Mongoloid links, of course, but also highlights evidence for other migrations, coastal routes, and potential links to Europe.
Like this Solutrean culture possibly influencing Clovis in North America.
That hypothesis is mentioned, yes. And the maritime archaic people, possibly linked to Basques.
And there's genetic evidence.
The source points to mtDNA haplogroup X. It's found in some Native American groups, but also in Europe and the Near East, suggesting ancient transatlantic connections. Also, some Y chromosome haplogroups shared between some Native Americans and Jewish populations. It points to very old, complex links.
The Rh-negative blood type comes up too. Why is that significant?
Its distribution is peculiar, much higher in Europe, especially among Basques and Berbers, but also present in some Native American groups like Mayans, Incas. The source questions its straightforward evolutionary origin.
Suggesting it might be a marker of some ancient specific population.
That's the implication explored. And linguistic links are suggested too, between Basques, Guanches in the Canaries, maybe ancient Mediterranean peoples, even Aryan languages, hinting at a common source like Atlantis.
And physical descriptions, the Guanches being tall and fair.
Yes, the Guanches described as tall, fair-skinned, blonde red-haired. Similar descriptions for the Chachapoya cloud warriors in Peru.
Plus the legends of bearded white gods like Viracocha or Quetzalcoatl.
Exactly. All presented as potential evidence pointing towards ancient European or Atlantean influence in the Americas long before Columbus.
And technological similarities across the Atlantic. Pyramids, mummification.
Pyramid construction, mummification techniques, even gold teeth fillings found in different ancient cultures, plus shared flood myths, all suggesting contact or a common heritage.
The book also touches on Aryan migrations.
Briefly, yes. Migrations from the Caucasus influencing India, Vedic Sanskrit, and Europe, often linked to sun worship traditions found echoed in Egypt, Greece, and elsewhere.
And Göbekli Tepe, the incredibly old site in Turkey.
Presented as an ancient calendar sanctuary, much older than Stonehenge or Mesopotamian cities, hinting at sophisticated astronomical knowledge deep in the past.
So it all circles back to this idea of cycles. Lost civilizations.
Exactly. The cyclical view of history presented by Plato and others. Advanced civilizations rise, fall, knowledge is lost, and maybe we keep forgetting the lessons of the past.
So wrapping up this deep dive, we've gone from 17th century messianic movements and their really radical offshoots.
Through the very shadowy world of alleged secret society conspiracies influencing global events.
And ended up exploring these fascinating, if speculative, theories about lost ancient civilizations, forgotten human origins, and global connections way back in time. It's quite a ride.
It certainly covers a lot of ground, and it's vital once more to stress that we've been relaying the information and theories from these specific sources.
Right, without endorsing any particular viewpoint ourselves. A lot of this is complex and definitely controversial.
Absolutely. We really hope this encourages you, the listener, to think critically about it all.
Yeah, and maybe do some of your own digging if any of this sparked your interest.
Definitely. Which leads us, I suppose, to a final thought for you to ponder.
Okay.
Considering all these potential threads, these alleged connections we've talked about today, what other seemingly unrelated events or ideas in history might actually share some kind of hidden link or origin?
And what would you want then about that possibility? What would it tell us about how history actually works or how we understand it?
Exactly, something to mull over.